I figured I had 1 month left to live. 1 month to go completely off the rails. Turns out, a month later, aside from feeling a little drained, I was healthy enough to wrestle a bear. That's when the hospital called, stammering and apologizing, and told me they'd mixed up my test results. I panicked. Staring at the woman, still sleeping soundly in my bed, I started to seriously wonder if I could get a lighter sentence if I turned myself in right now. Mr. Vance? Ethan Vance? This is Seacrest General Hospital. Regarding the results from your physical last month, there seems to have been a very minor error. On the other end of the line, the doctor's hesitant voice was like a rusty file scraping against my eardrum. I clutched my phone, frozen in place, my mind a complete blank. My gaze drifted involuntarily toward the bedroom. The door was slightly ajar. I could see the corner of a disheveled bed. A cascade of jet black hair spread across the pillow like silk. The woman in that bed was Sophia Reed, the Ice Queen of Seacrest City, the woman who haunted the dreams of 1,000 men, the billionaire CEO of Innovatech Dynamics, and the woman I had held captive for an entire month. I was screwed. A chill, colder and sharper than the one I'd felt when I first heard the words terminal lung cancer, shot up from the soles of my feet and exploded in my skull. A month ago, holding that diagnosis with its stark, red, terminal stamp, my world had collapsed. My name is Ethan Vance. I'm just a regular guy, an orphan who spent 26 years being completely, utterly average. My life was the human equivalent of a lukewarm glass of water. The only splash of color was a name seared into my heart since my freshman year of college, Sophia Reed. I thought that was it. I'd live out my bland existence until the end. Then a death sentence was slapped on my desk. Why me? I'd never hurt anyone. I lived my life by the book. So why the hell was I the one getting a one-way ticket to the morgue? I refused to accept it. Once that crazy thought took root, it grew like a weed. If I was going to die anyway, why did I have to follow the rules? Why couldn't I let loose just once? So I did the craziest, most unforgivable thing I'd ever done in my life. I concocted a fake business proposal and lured Sophia Reed to a secluded villa I'd rented in the hills overlooking the city. She probably only came because I'd once stepped in when some frat boy was harassing her at a party back in college. And then I locked the door. I'll never forget the look in her eyes. It shifted from confusion to shock and finally to an icy, soul-crushing disappointment. Ethan, do you have any idea what you're doing? The chill in her voice could have frozen the air solid. At that point, I had nothing left to lose. I brandished the diagnosis like a madman and screamed at her, I know exactly what I'm doing, and I know I'm dying. Stage 4 lung cancer. Sophia, I've been in love with you for 8 years. 8 damn years. All I want is for you to stay with me for 1 month, just 1 month before I die. I expected her to scream, to call the cops, to fight back with everything she had. But she didn't. She just stared at me, her gaze fixed on mine for what felt like an eternity. I almost drowned in the complex storm of emotions swirling in her eyes. Finally, she just closed them and whispered, 1 month, then you let me go. That month was a surreal dream. I tried to cook for her, fumbling and clumsy, either slicing my fingers or getting splattered with hot oil. She would just sit at the table, watching me quietly, and then eat whatever mangled dish I served without a word of complaint. I took her to watch the sunrise from a mountain peak. I coughed so hard, I thought my lungs were going to tear themselves out of my chest. She just silently handed me a bottle of water, her eyes filled with an emotion I couldn't decipher. I even dragged her to a grimy dive bar to drink cheap beer, bragging about my glory days in college like every other pathetic guy. She just listened, chin in her hands, the corner of her mouth, occasionally twitching into the faintest hint of a smile. She never resisted, but she never initiated anything either. She was like a beautiful, soulless doll, fulfilling every one of my insane last wishes. My cancer seemed to be playing along, too, making me feel weaker and more miserable with each passing day, which only reinforced my conviction that I'd made the right choice. Until, Mr. Vance, are you still there? Your physical came back perfect. You're completely healthy. One of our interns mixed up the files. You received the report for another Mr. Vance, an elderly gentleman. We are prepared to offer full compensation. Compensation. I twisted my lips into a sneer that sounded more like a sob. I wasn't fucking dying, but I had kidnapped the most powerful woman in Seacrest City. How do you compensate for that? With the life I just got back from the Grim Reaper's doorstep? Just then, a soft, sleepy murmur came from the bedroom. Sophia was waking up. My heart seized, the pain so sharp it stole my breath. It's over. It's so completely over. Like a prisoner on death row, I stiffly turned around. Sophia was sitting up, the silk comforter slipping from her smooth shoulders, revealing a breathtaking expanse of pale skin. She rubbed the sleep from her eyes and looked at me, her voice husky. What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. Over the past month, she seemed to have grown accustomed to this life. My throat was desert dry. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. What could I possibly say? Hey, Sophia, sorry, my bad. Total mix-up. Turns out I'm not dying, so this whole kidnapping thing was just a big misunderstanding. You're free to go. Maybe drop me off at the nearest precinct on your way out? Seeing my silence, Sophia slid out of bed. She walked toward me, barefoot, wearing nothing but one of my oversized white button-down shirts. Her long, slender legs cut a heart-stopping arc through the air. In public, she was famous for her elegant style, but here, bare-legged, she had a raw, primal power. Are you feeling sick again? She reached me, raising a cool hand to check my forehead. Her concern was like a needle plunging into my most vulnerable nerve. I flinched back, dodging her touch. Don't touch me. The words ripped from my throat. Sophia's hand froze midair. Her beautiful brows furrowed, and a flicker of hurt crossed her face. Seeing that look, my heart twisted. A tidal wave of guilt and terror crashed over me. I took a deep, shuddering breath, squeezed my eyes shut, then opened them again. I forced the words out, each one a Herculean effort. Sophia, I am sorry. Sorry for what? She asked, watching me intently. Everything. It was all a mistake. I was stammering like an idiot. I don't have cancer. The air went dead still. I didn't dare look at her. I just stared at the floor, bracing for the verdict. A furious slap? The cold, methodical dialing of 911? I was even prepared for her to have me beaten to a pulp. But none of that happened. The silence was deafening, broken only by the sound of our two sets of breathing. I couldn't take it. I slowly raised my eyes, peeking at her. She was just standing there, her face a mask, but her gorgeous eyes were a raging storm of shock, disbelief, and absurdity. Finally, all those emotions settled into something complex I couldn't name. So, she finally said, her voice quiet but hitting me like a sledgehammer, "You locked me in here for a month, tell me you're dying, and have me see you through your final days. And now you're telling me it was all a goddamn mistake." She spat out the last few words. I'm dead. That was my only thought. I didn't mean to. I tried to explain, the words tumbling over each other. Just then, a sound escaped her lips. A snort. I froze. Was Sophia laughing? It started as a low chuckle, her shoulders shaking slightly. Then it grew louder until she was bent over, howling with laughter, tears streaming down her face. Ethan Vance. Oh my God. You're the world's biggest, dumbest asshole. She was laughing and swearing at me, but the tears were real. I was completely baffled. What kind of reaction was this? Shouldn't she be furious? Hateful? She slowly straightened up and walked toward me, her eyes shimmering with tears. Suddenly, she raised her hand, not to strike me, but to gently cup my cheek. Do you know what I was thinking, she whispered, when you were screaming at me with that diagnosis in your hand? I shook my head, numb. I was thinking, this idiot. He's been in love with me for 8 years, and he only gets the courage to say it when he thinks he's dying. If I say no, is he really going to die with that regret? An invisible hand squeezed my heart. So I said yes. She looked me straight in the eye, a reckless determination in her gaze. I even thought 1 month is just 1 month. I'll consider it paying you back for that time in college. And if you really died, I would. She trailed off, but the pain in her eyes was sharp and real. But you didn't die. Her expression shifted, a sly, fox-like grin appearing on her face. Ethan Vance, you tricked me, you kidnapped me, you illegally detained me for a month. Tell me, how exactly are we going to settle this score? I looked at her, this untouchable goddess, now looking like a mischievous prankster who just pulled one over on the world. I suddenly understood. It wasn't that she wasn't angry or resentful. She was just waiting for me to give her an answer. Before I could speak, a thunderous bang echoed from the front door. The flimsy lock was shattered as the door was kicked open from the outside. "Sophia, where the hell are you?" a supremely arrogant voice bellowed. A moment later, a slick-haired young man, flanked by 7 or 8 burly guys in black suits, stormed in. The leader was none other than Seacrest City's most infamous rich prick, the heir to Sterling Enterprises, Caleb Sterling, and Sophia's most obsessive pursuer. His eyes immediately locked onto Sophia, clad only in my shirt, and me, standing right in front of her. Caleb's eyes turned bloodshot. A toxic mix of jealousy and fury twisted his handsome face into a demonic mask. Well, Sophia, I chase you for years, and you won't give me the time of day. But you let this piece of trash hide you away in a place like this?" He pointed a trembling finger at me, his features contorted. "You, what the hell are you? You dare touch my woman? Kill him." At Caleb's command, the towering bodyguards behind him cracked their knuckles, their faces grim, and started moving toward me. These guys were pros. You could tell by their steady stance and the cold, violent energy they radiated. Sophia went pale and instinctively tried to step in front of me. I reached out and gently pulled her behind me. The movement was so natural it surprised even me. A month ago, I would have probably wet my pants if a single thug so much as looked at me funny. But now, facing this pack of wolves, I felt nothing, not a flicker of fear. In fact, I almost wanted to laugh. Over the past month, preparing to meet my maker, I'd barely eaten. I've been running on fumes. But strangely, my body hadn't broken down. Instead, it felt like it was buzzing with an unprecedented power. A sleeping beast had awakened inside me. "Kid, get on your knees and apologize, then get the hell out of here. And we might let you live." The lead bodyguard, a bald mountain of a man, sneered, reaching a hand the size of a catcher's mitt for my shoulder. Sophia let out a small gasp behind me. Caleb wore a triumphant, vicious smirk, as if he could already see me with broken bones, begging for mercy. I didn't move. The instant his hand was about to touch my shoulder, I did. Fast, blindingly fast. I barely register my own movements. My body just reacted: a sidestep, a raised hand, a swift chop to the bald man's wrist. Crack! The sharp sound of bone snapping echoed in the living room. The bodyguard's massive hand went limp at an unnatural angle. The sneer on his face froze, replaced by a mask of agony and utter disbelief. "Aord!" A scream like a slaughtered pig filled the room. Everyone froze. Caleb's triumphant smirk was stuck on his face. The other bodyguards' menacing expressions turned to dumbfounded shock. Behind me, Sophia covered her mouth, her beautiful eyes wide with astonishment. I looked at my own hand, completely unscathed, and felt a jolt of confusion myself. I could do that? Useless. A bunch of useless sacks of crap. All of you get him. Kill him. I'll take care of any problems. Caleb shrieked, snapping out of his stupor. The remaining bodyguards exchanged glances, their shock hardening into grim resolve. They weren't underestimating me anymore. With guttural roars, they swarmed me from all sides. Fists whistled through the air, carrying enough force to tear a man apart. This time, I didn't wait. I moved forward to meet them. I didn't know the names of any moves or the proper way to throw a punch. I just felt like every action they took was a slow-motion movie playing out before my eyes. The trajectory of their fists, the shift in their balance, the rhythm of their breathing. It was all crystal clear, and my body knew, instinctively, how to counter at the perfect moment with the most effective strike. A side kick, a block, an elbow strike, a shoulder throw. The movements were simple, but brutally efficient. The living room filled with the sickening thuds of impact, punctuated by grunts of pain and the sickening crunch of dislocated joints. Less than 30 seconds. It was over. Except for the first guy with the broken wrist, the other 7 bodyguards were sprawled on the floor, groaning in agony, clutching shattered limbs, unable to get up. The room was a disaster zone, and I stood in the middle of it all, my breathing perfectly even. I shook out my hands and turned my calm gaze to the man by the door, who looked like he'd just seen the devil himself. "Now it's your turn." Caleb stumbled back 3 steps and fell on his ass in the hallway, a dark stain rapidly spreading across the front of his designer pants. He pointed at me, his lips trembling, unable to form a single word. You're a monster. I smirked. A month ago, I would have agreed with him. I walked toward him, step by step. He scrambled backward on his hands and feet, his face a canvas of pure terror. Don't come near me. My father is Marcus Sterling. If you touch me, he'll destroy you. He shrieked, playing his only card. I stood over him, my eyes like chips of ice. Marcus Sterling. I slowly crouched down to his level. Is he supposed to impress me? You dare disrespect my father. Caleb blustered, his fear warring with his pride. I didn't say a word. I just reached out and, as he watched in horror, gently patted his cheek. Go home and tell your daddy that Sophia Reed is my woman. My voice was quiet, but each word landed like a hammer blow on Caleb's fragile ego. And I paused, leaning close to his ear, my voice a low whisper only he could hear. The next time I see you, I'll break your 3rd leg. I promise. With that, I stood up, turned my back on him, and walked back inside. Behind me, I heard the sound of Caleb scrambling away in a pathetic heap. In the living room, Sophia was still standing where I'd left her. She was staring at me, and the icy frost that usually coated her eyes had been replaced by 2 blazing fires, astonishingly bright. She didn't ask how I suddenly became a one-man army. She didn't ask what we were going to do now. She just looked at me. Then she walked forward, stood on her toes, and, to my complete astonishment, kissed me. Her lips were soft and cool, and they trembled slightly against mine. The kiss was brief, over in an instant. But for me, it was like a lightning bolt had struck my soul. I froze, my brain completely short-circuiting. Sophia pulled back, a lovely blush coloring her cheeks, but her gaze remained bold and intense. Ethan, she said, her voice a little breathless. That was hot. I had to admit, my stupid heart skipped several beats. I won't press charges for the kidnapping, she said, looking at me, her words deliberate. But you have to agree to one condition. What condition? I asked automatically. Be my man. Protect me. She tilted her head up, her eyes burning into mine. Caleb won't let this go. The Sterling family has deep roots in this city. I need a man who can stand in front of me. I looked at her, and suddenly I understood her plan. She was lashing me to her side, making me her champion. Aren't you afraid I'm just some meathead who got lucky? Sterling won't come at you with just thugs next time, I said, frowning. Corporate sabotage, dirty tricks, the sheer weight of their influence. Those are the real weapons. I am afraid, Sophia admitted honestly, but I trust my instincts more. A man who dares to kidnap me when he thinks he's dying doesn't have a cowardly bone in his body. And a man who can take down 8 professional bodyguards without breaking a sweat is hiding secrets I can't even imagine. She paused, her gaze deepening. Ethan, who are you? I was silent. I didn't know who I was either. All I knew was that I wasn't the same mediocre, easily pushed around Ethan Vance anymore. The power coursing through my veins, the heightened senses, the combat instincts. Something had fundamentally changed inside me. And it all started with that mistaken death sentence. Maybe a person on the brink really can unlock some hidden potential, like a mother lifting a car off her child, or a cornered soldier performing miracles. I'm Ethan Vance, I said, meeting her eyes. And from now on, I'm a man who protects you. Whatever was happening to me, I was going to protect this woman. It wasn't just a promise. It was a declaration. Sophia smiled. It was like watching a glacier melt in the spring, a breathtaking sight that made my heart ache. Okay, it was all she said, but that single word felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Things moved quickly after that. I grabbed my few belongings and left the villa I'd rented to be her prison. A red Ferrari was parked downstairs. Get in, Sophia said from the driver's seat. First, we're getting you some new clothes. I looked down at the t-shirt I'd been wearing for a month. It was pathetic. I slid into the passenger seat, the force of the high-end sports car pressing me back as the city flew by in a blur. An hour ago, I was a kidnapper about to turn myself in. Now, I was the bodyguard and man of Seacrest City's most desirable woman. Life comes at you fast. Sterling Enterprises is mainly in real estate and entertainment. I've dealt with Marcus Sterling a few times. He's a wolf in sheep's clothing, all smiles on the surface, but ruthless underneath, Sophia explained as she drove. Caleb is his only son, spoiled rotten and completely lawless. After what happened today, they'll definitely retaliate. How? I asked. Officially, they'll use business tactics. Attack Innovatech as stock, try to poach our projects. Unofficially, Sophia paused, her tone growing heavy. Marcus has ties to some of the city's underground figures. He might hire someone much more dangerous to deal with you. More dangerous? Yeah, not your average bodyguards. She glanced at me. Seacrest City looks civilized on the surface, but underneath, it's a jungle. They're old families, underground organizations. Their power is beyond what most people can comprehend. Old families? Underground organizations? A thought flickered in my mind. Could my transformation have something to do with that? Don't worry, I said calmly. We'll handle whatever comes our way. The unknown power inside me gave me a confidence that was opening my eyes to a whole new world. My calm seemed to infect Sophia, and the tension in her beautiful face eased. She took me to the most exclusive luxury mall in the city, a place where a single shirt cost more than my last year's salary. I felt out of place, but Sophia navigated the opulent stores with effortless grace. She picked out clothes for me herself, from tailored suits and dress shirts to casual wear, even underwear. Go try this on, she said, handing me a perfectly tailored black suit. When I stepped out of the dressing room, I barely recognized myself. The man in the mirror was tall and lean, with broad shoulders and a narrow waist. The black suit accentuated a physique I didn't know I had. My ordinary features seemed sharper, more defined. My entire demeanor changed. My eyes, especially, looked different, deep and calm, but with the glint of a blade ready to be unsheathed. The saleswoman was staring, speechless. A flash of admiration lit up Sophia's eyes. She walked up to me, naturally adjusting my tie. It's perfect, she murmured, nodding in satisfaction. She was so close I could smell the faint, elegant scent of her perfume and see the fine hairs on her neck. Just then, a sharp, grating voice cut through the air. Well, if it isn't Ms. Reed, what surprise. Changing tastes, are we? Picking up boy toys now. I turned to see a woman in a Chanel suit, her face caked in makeup that couldn't hide the bitterness in her eyes. She was clinging to the arm of a portly, middle-aged man, smirking at us. Tiffany Croft? Sophia's brow twitched almost imperceptibly. Oh, you remember me. I'm so flattered, Tiffany said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Her eyes raked over me shamelessly. This handsome young man is new. Where'd you find him, Sophia? Nice build. How much does he run you a month? The balding man beside her let out a lewd chuckle. My eyes turned cold. Sophia spoke before I could, her voice returning to its usual frosty tone. Watch your mouth, Tiffany. You're in no position to comment on my man. My man. She said the words like she was driving nails into steel. Tiffany's smile faltered, then twisted into something even more venomous. Oh, getting defensive? Don't act so high and mighty, Sophia. Everyone knows Innovatech is having cash flow problems. If you don't land that South District project, you're going bankrupt. What? Running out of money, so you have to settle for cheap arm candy. Her words were a bombshell. Innovatech was in trouble? I glanced at Sophia. Her expression didn't change, but I saw a flicker of something in the depths of her eyes. You don't need to worry about my business, Sophia said coldly. Oh, I'm not worried about you. Tiffany's voice rose, as if she'd hit a nerve. I just can't stand your phony, holier-than-thou act. Let me tell you, Mr. Grossman here is also interested in that South District project. How are you going to compete with us? With this boy toy of yours? The man she was with was Walter Grossman, owner of a rival real estate firm. Is that so? A cold smile touched Sophia's lips. Then I'll see you at the auction. Fine. I can't wait to see what you plan on bidding with. Tiffany gloated, looking like she'd already won. She shot me one last disdainful look before walking off on Grossman's arm. Let's go, Sophia said, her face grim. I followed her, feeling the tension radiating from her. It wasn't until we were back in the car that she let out a long sigh and rubbed her temples, a hint of exhaustion on her face. Is what she said true? I asked. Sophia was quiet for a moment before nodding. The company has invested heavily in developing new technology, which has strained our cash reserves. The South District property is crucial for our future. I have to get it, but the Sterlings and Grossman will definitely team up to outbid me at the auction. She looked at me, a bitter smile on her face. So, regretting this yet? It's not too late to get out. Stick with me, and you might be jumping into the abyss. Seeing her trying to act tough, something soft in my chest stirred. It was just like that day in college, when a group of townies had me cornered in an alley. She'd stood up for me like a warrior princess, terrified, but putting on a brave face to scare them off. Some things never changed. I reached over and pulled her into my arms. Sophia's body tensed, clearly surprised by the sudden gesture. I told you, I'll protect you, I whispered in her ear. A washed-up family like the Sterlings and some nobody like Grossman, they don't get to be your abyss. My voice was quiet, but it held an undeniable strength. The tense body in my arms slowly relaxed. She rested her head on my shoulder and mumbled a soft, "Okay." In that moment, she wasn't the powerful CEO, just a woman who needed someone to lean on. After a long moment, she looked up, her eyes a little red. The auction is in 3 days. My absolute limit is $200 million, but I know they'll drive the price far beyond what I can afford. Let me worry about the money, I said. Honestly, I had no idea where I was going to get that kind of cash. But a man's got to talk big in front of his woman, right? Sophia clearly didn't take me seriously. She just smiled as if I was just trying to comfort her and started the car. Let's go home. Her home was a sprawling riverside mansion in Seacrest City's most exclusive gated community. The security and privacy were a universe away from my crappy apartment. A butler and house staff were on hand. They were surprised to see her bring me back, but remained perfectly professional, addressing me respectfully as Mr. Vance. That night, Sophia put me in the guest room next to her bedroom. Lying on the impossibly soft bed, I was wide awake. I closed my eyes and focused inward, feeling the strange energy inside me. It was like a warm current flowing through my limbs. I could clearly see its path, and I could even guide it with my thoughts. I tried concentrating the energy into my ears. Instantly, the sound of the wind outside, the rustle of leaves, the distant flow of the river. 1,000 tiny sounds flooded my mind with perfect clarity. Next, I focused it on my eyes. The darkness in the room slowly receded. I could make out the outlines of the furniture, and then I could see the electrical wiring and water pipes inside the walls. Was this X-ray vision? My mind was reeling. I not only had superhuman strength and speed, but also extraordinary hearing and sight. What the hell was this power? Was I really some long-lost scion of a secret family, my bloodline awakened by a near-death experience that wasn't? The whole idea was so damn cheesy. But whatever it was, with these abilities, the bullshit I just spouted might actually be possible. I sat up and focused my vision, beginning to scan the mansion. A billionaire CEO like Sophia had to have some valuable collections, right? I could just borrow a few things and buy her better ones once I made some money. My gaze swept over the study, the living room, the wine cellar, and finally settled on a locked rosewood box in a dusty corner of the basement. The box itself was unremarkable, but when my vision passed through the wood, I saw an old, yellowed, string-bound book lying inside. Its pages were filled with complex diagrams of a human body's meridian lines, surrounded by dense, tiny script. The Asclepius Ledger. What was this? An acupuncture manual? As I puzzled over it, I felt a familiar pulse of energy from the book's pages. It was the same energy that was flowing through my own body. My heart began to pound. My instincts screamed at me that this box held the key to the mystery of what was happening to me. I immediately got out of bed and slipped out of my room. The mansion was silent. I used my enhanced senses to easily bypass the security cameras and made my way to the basement. The rosewood box was on a metal shelf, covered in a thin layer of dust. It clearly hadn't been touched in years. The old brass lock was a joke. I gave it a sharp twist with 2 fingers, and with a soft click, the lock broke. I opened the box. The Asclepius Ledger lay inside. I picked it up. The paper felt smooth and cool like jade, a strange texture for a book. I opened the first page, and an ancient, profound aura washed over me. The text was archaic and difficult to read, but as I focused, the words and diagrams seemed to come alive, transforming into a torrent of information that poured directly into my brain. My head felt like it was going to split open. I grunted in pain, nearly collapsing. Countless bits of knowledge about meridians, energy flow, acupuncture techniques, and herbal medicine were forcibly downloaded into my memory. It turned out the power I'd awakened was a type of energy called qi. In this book, the Asclepius Ledger was a legendary medical text that taught how to cultivate qi and use it to guide needles. According to the book, practitioners of this art possessed a special bloodline that had a chance of awakening during a life-or-death crisis. Upon awakening, their strength, speed, and senses would be magnified, and they would gain incredible medical skills. The so-called lung cancer wasn't cancer at all. It was the chaotic surge of my awakening qi wreaking havoc on my internal organs. The hospital's advanced equipment couldn't detect qi. It could only read the surface symptoms and come to the wrong conclusion. It all made sense. I wasn't the cliché long-lost heir to some rich family. I was the inheritor of the Asclepius Ledger. After the initial euphoria, I calmed down. Why was this book in Sophia's house? Was she or her family connected to this legacy? I pushed the questions aside and continued to absorb the information. The book wasn't just about medicine. It was about a philosophy of life. It spoke of karma. If the practitioner used their skills for good, their qi would become purer and stronger. If they used them for evil, they would suffer a backlash and be consumed by their own power. A sense of clarity washed over me. No wonder the qi inside me felt so warm and gentle. I may have lived a boring life, but I'd never intentionally harmed anyone. And now, with this power, my first task was to solve Sophia's problem. The auction. $200 million. I looked at the medical text in my hands, and a bold plan began to form. Money might be a problem for other people, but for a master physician armed with the secrets of the Asclepius Ledger, was it really an issue? The next morning, I found Sophia. She had just finished her morning workout, dressed in a form-fitting yoga outfit that showcased her incredible curves. A light sheen of sweat on her forehead made her look even more alluring. Up early? Did you sleep well? She asked, handing me a glass of warm water. Like a log, I said, taking the glass. I got straight to the point. About the money. I have a plan. Sophia blinked, then smiled, clearly not taking me seriously. Oh, and what's that? Are you going to rob a bank? Too slow, I said, my expression serious. We're going to save a life. Save a life. Now she was just confused. Arthur Finch, the richest man in Seacrest City. 3 months ago, he came down with a mysterious illness. He's seen every specialist, but no one can help him. Now he's on his deathbed. His family is offering a $100 million reward to anyone who can save him, I said, looking her straight in the eye. I'd picked up this bit of gossip from the staff's hushed conversations last night using my super hearing. Sophia's smile vanished. She stared at me in shock. Ethan, are you insane? That's Arthur Finch. The top medical experts in the country have given up on him. What are you going to do? Do you know anything about medicine? A little, I replied calmly. How little? Enough to save his life. Sophia stared at me, searching my face for any sign that I was joking. But I wasn't. My gaze was steady and confident. She was silent for a long time, so long I thought she was going to refuse. Finally, she took a deep breath, as if making a monumental decision. Fine, I'll take you there. But you have to promise me, if you can't do it, you absolutely do not mess around. We can't afford to make an enemy of the Finch family. Don't worry. The Finch estate was a fortress-like mansion perched atop the Summit Estates, east of the city, with heavy security. Without Sophia's connections, I wouldn't have even made it past the front gate. After she announced who we were and why we were there, we were led into a grand living room to meet Arthur Finch's only son, Julian. Julian looked to be in his late 30s, his face etched with exhaustion and his eyes sunken, but he still carried the authoritative air of a man used to being in charge. He glanced at Sophia, then his scrutinizing gaze fell on me. Ms. Reed, I appreciate our family's history with you, he said coolly, but this is not the time for jokes. My father's condition has baffled the best doctors from D.C. What do you hope to accomplish by bringing someone so young here? His tone was laced with distrust and the annoyance of being disturbed. Sophia looked uncomfortable and was about to explain, but I stepped forward. Mr. Finch, I said flatly, The only way to know if I can help is to let me try. It's not as if your father's condition can get any worse, can it? My words were blunt, but they cut to the heart of the matter. Julian's face darkened, a dangerous glint in his eyes. Just as he was about to lose his temper, a frail, old voice drifted down from the second floor. Let him come up. We went upstairs. A massive bedroom was filled with advanced medical equipment, all beeping and whirring. A white-haired but energetic old man was sitting by the bed, checking the patient's pupils. This must be the renowned expert from D.C. Dr. Alistair Crane. And lying on the bed was the man himself, Arthur Finch. His eyes were closed, his skin was a waxy, sallow color, and his lips were tinged with blue. His breathing was so shallow it was almost undetectable. He was skeletal, the spark of life flickering and ready to be extinguished at any moment. I took one look and my brow furrowed. This wasn't an illness. It was poison. A rare, complex poison made from a cocktail of toxic herbs. It doesn't kill instantly, but slowly eats away at a person's life force, draining their organs until there's nothing left. The method was brilliant. The poison was so perfectly integrated into his bloodstream and meridians that no medical instrument could detect it. All they could see was a steady decline in his vital signs. Young man, were you the one making arrogant claims downstairs? Dr. Crane said, putting down his penlight and turning to face me, his gaze sharp. I wasn't being arrogant. I was stating a fact, I replied, meeting his gaze without flinching. Huh, such confidence. Dr. Crane snorted, clearly unimpressed with some upstart kid. I've been a doctor for 50 years. There is no malady I haven't seen. Mr. Finch's pulse is weak, his life force is depleted, and his organs are failing. He's at the end of his rope. This is fate. No mortal can defy it. You should be studying, not spouting the nonsense of a common charlatan. He spoke with self-righteous authority. Beside him, Julian's expression grew even darker. His eyes now held a murderous glint as he looked at me. Sophia tugged nervously at my sleeve. But I just smiled. Dr. Crane, is it? I shook my head. It's a tragedy that after 50 years of practice, you still can't see the root of the problem. What did you say? Dr. Crane sputtered, his face flushing with rage. You insolent child, how dare you insult me? I'm not insulting you, I said, my voice quiet but clear. Mr. Finch isn't sick. He's been poisoned. The poison has settled in his organs and blocked his meridians, causing his life force to decay. You've completely misdiagnosed him. Your attempts to sustain him with restorative medicine are only accelerating the poison spread. If you continue this treatment, he'll be dead in 3 days. My words were a thunderclap in the silent room. Dr. Crane went pale, pointing a trembling finger at me, unable to speak. Julian's face was a mask of fury. Nonsense, he roared. My father has round-the-clock care. His food is prepared by a dedicated team. How could he possibly be poisoned? Who the hell are you? Say one more word of this garbage, and I'll have you thrown out. As he spoke, 2 guards from the doorway stepped into the room, their eyes fixed on me. Sophia was white as a sheet, clutching my arm tightly. I gently patted her hand to reassure her. Then I looked at Julian, a knowing smile playing on my lips. Round-the-clock care? A dedicated team for his food? Mr. Finch, has it ever occurred to you that the poisoner might be one of the trusted people on your team? Julian's pupils contracted. I ignored him and turned to the apoplectic Dr. Crane. Doctor, 3 years ago, did you start experiencing a sharp, aching pain in your right knee, especially on rainy days? Dr. Crane froze. How did you know that? He asked involuntarily. It was an old injury that had plagued him for years. And over the past year, I continued, have you been suffering from night sweats, heart palpitations, and a weak, forked urinary stream? Dr. Crane's face changed completely, from anger to stunned horror. That last symptom was his most private shame, something not even his wife knew. How could this young man know every detail? That's? He couldn't form a complete sentence. I smiled faintly. Your knee isn't just an old injury. It's a pocket of cold energy that invaded your governing vessel and never dispersed. As for the other issue, it's a symptom of a depleted kidney chi. If you don't believe me, press the spot on the inside of your left wrist, about an inch below the crease. Tell me if you feel an excruciating pain. Hesitantly, Dr. Crane placed his right thumb on the spot I'd indicated and pressed down hard. Hiss. He sucked in a sharp breath, sweat beading on his forehead. A jolt of agonizing, needle-like pain shot up his arm, nearly making him cry out. The way he looked at me transformed completely. It went from scorn to shock to reverence and finally to the look of a man who had seen a ghost. To diagnose a person so perfectly just by looking at them. This was the work of a god. Yo, no, master. Master, please help me. He threw all decorum to the wind, rushing over to me, looking like he was about to fall to his knees. Julian and Sophia were completely dumbfounded. The esteemed doctor who was ready to have me killed a moment ago was now my biggest fan. The reversal was stunning. Julian was no fool. He immediately realized I wasn't talking nonsense. He looked at me, his expression shifting rapidly, and then he took a deep breath and bowed deeply. Mr. Vance, I was blind. Please save my father. I accepted his bow without moving. I can save him, I said, gesturing to the man on the bed. But my fee is very high. Name your price. As long as you can save my father, the Finch family will give you anything. Julian's voice was desperate and sincere. I want $100 million, I said, holding up one finger. Julian didn't hesitate for a second. Done. If you can cure him, I'll give you $200 million. He was clinging to me as his last hope. I don't want $100 million. Just 100, I said calmly. Also, I'll need a set of silver needles. And while I'm working, I am not to be disturbed by anyone. Of course, I'll have it all arranged immediately, Julian said, quickly dispatching the butler. Soon, a brand new set of acupuncture needles arrived. I had everyone leave the room, except for Sophia. You stay, I told her. I need your help. She was nervous, but she nodded. I walked to the bed, took a deep breath, and channeled the chi to my fingertips. Then, I picked up a 3-inch needle and, with the speed of a striking viper, inserted it into the biwee point on the crown of Arthur Finch's head. My movements were fluid and precise. 1 needle, 2, 3. In moments, 9 needles were expertly placed in key points on his head. I brought my index and middle fingers together and aimed them at the end of the central needle, not quite touching it. Vim. A low hum filled the air as the silver needle began to vibrate at a high frequency, as if it were alive. Then, the other 8 needles began to vibrate in unison, creating a strange resonance. Sophia watched from the side, her jaw agape. She could actually see ripples in the air around the needles. This was the 9 Palaces rejuvenation technique from the Asclepius ledger. It used chi to stimulate the needles, awaken the body's latent potential, and secure the heart meridian. By the time I was done, a thin sheen of sweat covered my forehead. At my current level, performing this technique was draining. Help me sit him up, I told Sophia. She rushed over, and together we propped up Arthur Finch's frail body into a cross-legged position. Now came the most critical part, expelling the poison. I moved behind him, placed my palms on his back, and poured every last drop of my remaining chi into his body. My chi moved like nimble serpents through his meridians, searching out the hidden toxins inch by inch. It was an incredibly delicate and exhausting process. The poison had almost completely fused with his own life force. One wrong move could shatter his meridians and kill him instantly. Time ticked by. My face grew paler, and my shirt was soaked with sweat. Sophia watched anxiously, her hands clenched so tightly her knuckles were white. Finally, under my guidance, the dark, insidious poison was peeled away from his organs, gathering into a single stream and flowing toward the index finger of his right hand. Done, I said in a low voice, pulling my hands back. I swayed on my feet, nearly collapsing. Sophia rushed to support me, her face full of concern. Ethan, are you okay? I'm fine, I said, shaking my head and looking at Arthur Finch's hand. His right index finger was rapidly turning a grotesque shade of purplish black. I took a needle and pierced the fingertip without hesitation. Splat! A single drop of thick, black, foul-smelling blood oozed out and hit the floor, instantly sizzling a small hole in the expensive hardwood. As soon as the poison was out, the aura of death around Arthur Finch began to dissipate. His sallow skin slowly regained its color, and his faint breathing became deep and steady. Cough, cough, cough. After a fit of coughing, Arthur Finch, who had been in a coma for 3 months, slowly opened his eyes. He looked blankly at the ceiling, then at Sophia and me, his eyes filled with confusion. Where? Where am I? I thought I was. Just then, the door was thrown open. Julian and Dr. Crane rushed in. When they saw Arthur Finch sitting up and wide awake, they froze, looking as if they'd been struck by lightning. Dad! Julian was the first to react, rushing to the bedside, his words a jumble of joyous disbelief. Dad, you're awake. You're really awake. Dr. Crane hurried over as well, taking Arthur's pulse with a trembling hand. His face was a mask of ecstatic disbelief. He's alive. He's alive. The pulse is strong and steady. His energy is flowing. This is a medical miracle. No, it's divine intervention. It's a miracle. He looked at me with an expression that went beyond reverence. He was looking at me like I was a god. Arthur Finch was still weak, but he was fully lucid. After Julian explained what had happened, he struggled to get out of bed to thank me. I quickly stopped him. Mr. Finch, please, don't trouble yourself. Just focus on your recovery. Arthur looked at me, his eyes filled with gratitude and awe. Mr. Vance, to have such heavenly skills at such a young age. You have truly opened my eyes. I can never repay this debt. From this day forward, my family and I are at your command. A promise like that, from the richest man in the city, was worth more than any amount of money. An idea sparked in my mind. This was the opportunity one needed. You're too kind, Mr. Finch, I said with a small smile. I saved you partly for the fee, but there is one other thing I need. Please ask anything. In 3 days, at the auction for the South District property, I hope the Finch family will lend me their support. Arthur Finch was a sharp man. He understood immediately. He glanced at Sophia and then laughed heartily. But for young Sophia, of course, that insignificant Sterling family thinks they can run this city. In 3 days, I'll be there myself to support you. Let's see who dares to bid against you then. With his promise, the South District property was as good as mine. Sophia stared at me, her beautiful eyes shining with a mixture of admiration and affection. This man, he just kept creating impossible miracles when she was at her most desperate. It was evening when we left the Finch estate. The setting sun cast a golden glow on Sophia's Ferrari. In the car, she kept glancing at me like I was some kind of alien. How many more secrets are you hiding from me? She finally asked. Miraculous medical skills, superhuman fighting abilities. The mystery of me had completely captivated her. You'll find out eventually, I said, leaning back and closing my eyes. Healing Arthur had taken a lot out of me. All I wanted was to sleep. Fine, be that way, she pouted, but she didn't press further, just drove more smoothly. By the time we got back to the mansion, the $100 million fee had already been wired to Innovatech's corporate account. Sophia stared at the long line of zeros on her screen, still in a daze. The financial crisis that had been plaguing her for months, I had solved in a single afternoon, and in a way she could never have imagined. This money, she started looking at me. Consider it my down payment on a dowry, I said, opening my eyes and looking at her seriously. Sophia's face instantly turned scarlet. She looked away, unable to meet my eyes, and mumbled, Who said anything about marrying you? She looked nothing like the Ice Queen CEO. I just smiled. For the next 2 days, I rested at the villa, restoring my energy and strengthening the chi within me. Meanwhile, the city was in an uproar over Arthur Finch's miraculous recovery. The news that the city's richest man had been saved from death's door by a mysterious young doctor spread like wildfire. The rich and powerful were all scrambling to find out who I was. The Sterling family, however, went strangely quiet. After Caleb had scurried home, Marcus Sterling hadn't made any move to retaliate. He was clearly more cautious than his son. He was watching, investigating me, but he wouldn't find anything. To the world, I was still Ethan Vance, the orphan with a boring resume. The unknown was the most terrifying thing of all. 3 days later, at the Seacrest City International Auction House, the auction for the South District property was underway. When I walked in with Sophia on my arm, we immediately became the center of attention. Sophia was wearing a stunning black evening gown, looking regal and untouchable, a queen of the night. I was in a well-fitted suit, calm and composed. Together, we were a perfect picture. Isn't that Sophia Reed? Who's the guy with her? No idea. But look at how she's holding on to him. They must be serious. Could that be the mysterious doctor who saved Arthur Finch? The whispers from all around were like daggers in the ears of one person in particular. Caleb Sterling was mingling with some other rich kids, a glass of wine in his hand. When he saw us, his smile froze, replaced by a look of pure, venomous hatred. The adoring way Sophia looked at me was like acid on his soul. "Caleb, that bastard is here," one of his friends muttered. "I see him," Caleb hissed, his eyes glinting dangerously. "Some nobody who crawled out of the gutter thinks he can steal my woman? Today, I'm going to teach him the meaning of despair." Tiffany Croft and Walter Grossman sidled up to him. "Looks like our competition has arrived, Mr. Sterling," Grossman said with a smirk. "Don't you worry, Mr. Grossman," Caleb sneered. "My family is taking that property today. Let's see what Sophia Reed can possibly do. As for her boy toy, after the auction, I'll make sure he disappears from this city for good." Just then, a commotion erupted at the entrance. Arthur Finch, flanked by his son Julian and a team of bodyguards, strode into the hall. He looked robust and full of life, not a trace of his recent illness remaining. The entire room fell silent. All eyes were on the true king of Seacrest City. His presence confirmed all the rumors. But what he did next made everyone's jaws drop. He walked straight through the crowd, came right up to me, and with a warm, genuine smile, gave a slight bow. "Mr. Vance, I'm so glad you could make it." The room exploded. Everyone stared at me as if I'd grown a second head. Arthur Finch, the man at the absolute pinnacle of the city's hierarchy, was bowing to me. This wasn't just politeness. This was deep, profound respect. Who in the world was this young man? The sneer on Caleb Sterling's face was frozen solid. The wine glass in his hand slipped, shattering on the floor and staining the plush carpet like a pool of blood. Walter Grossman's jowls quivered in shock. Tiffany Croft looked terrified and hid behind him. I accepted Arthur's greeting with a calm nod. "Mr. Finch, you're looking well." "Thanks to you, Mr. Vance," he boomed, grinning from ear to ear. "You're not just my savior, you're family. From now on, anyone who disrespects you, disrespects me." He said it loud and clear for everyone to hear. Caleb's face went from pale to ashen. He knew what Arthur's words meant. In this city, you might survive offending the Sterlings, but offending the Finches was a death sentence. He couldn't comprehend how this penniless loser had suddenly become Arthur Finch's savior. It was impossible. I ignored the shocked stares and led Sophia to our seats in the center of the front row. Arthur naturally sat down right beside me, making his allegiance clear. Sophia was beyond thrilled. She looked at the calm profile of the man beside her and felt an overwhelming sense of security. The Sterlings, Grossman, they all seemed like insignificant clowns now. With him by her side, she felt invincible. The auction began. The South District property was the final item. The bidding started at $100 million. $100 million, I said, raising my paddle as soon as the auctioneer finished speaking. Silence. No one dared to bid against me. It was obvious Arthur Finch was here for me. Bidding against me was a direct insult to him. The auctioneer looked awkward, not sure if he should just end it. Then, a defiant voice called out, $110 million. It was Caleb. Everyone stared. Was he insane? Did he not see Arthur Finch sitting right there? Was he openly challenging the Finch family? Arthur's face darkened, but I just smiled. I knew Caleb wouldn't back down so easily. For a spoiled brat like him, ego was everything. After the humiliation I'd dealt him, there was no way he could just let it go. $120 million, I said, raising my paddle again. 130. Caleb shot back, his eyes locked on me. 150 million, I said coolly. 160. 200 million. I jumped straight to Sophia's limit. The room gasped. That was already more than the property was worth. This wasn't business. This was a pissing contest. Caleb was breathing heavily. 200 million was near his limit, too. He shot a desperate look at his father, Marcus Sterling, who had been sitting quietly in a corner. Marcus finally looked up, his cold gaze piercing through the crowd to land on me. He gave Caleb a slight nod. Reinvigorated, Caleb shot to his feet. 210 million, he roared. He was telling me that his family wasn't afraid of the Finches. Sophia's face was pale. She squeezed my hand. Arthur frowned and started to speak, but I shook my head at him. Then I slowly raised my paddle. 300 million. The words hung in the dead silent air. 300 million. Everyone was stunned. This wasn't a pissing contest anymore. This was burning money. Caleb's jaw hung open. He looked at me like I was a lunatic. In the corner, the practiced smile on Marcus Sterling's face finally cracked, a muscle twitching in his cheek. Sophia stared at me in shock. "Ethan, are you crazy?" she whispered frantically. "We don't have that kind of money." I gave her a reassuring look, then turned to Arthur. "Mr. Finch, I might have to borrow your good name for a moment." Arthur blinked, then let out a booming laugh, his eyes full of admiration. "Mr. Vance, what's mine is yours. Don't say 300 million. Even if you said 3 billion, I wouldn't bat an eye." His declaration was a public announcement. The Finch family was backing my bid. Caleb's face turned the color of week-old meat. He knew he had lost, utterly and completely. He hadn't just failed to humiliate me. He had become the laughingstock of the entire city. 300 million going once, the auctioneer called out, his voice trembling with excitement. 300 million going twice. Wait, just as the gavel was about to fall, Marcus Sterling stood up. He looked at the auctioneer, his voice cold. "I question this gentleman's ability to pay. I demand proof of funds." It was his last, most vicious move. He was betting that boy toy, couldn't possibly have $300 million. Even with Arthur's backing, words weren't cash. If I couldn't produce the money on the spot, I would be a joke. Arthur's face darkened. He was about to explode, but I stopped him. I stood up and smiled at Marcus. "Mr. Sterling, are you questioning my credibility or Mr. Finch's?" "I only trust the rules," he said with a smirk. "Since you're so confident, you won't mind proving it, will you?" He was backing me into a corner. Everyone was staring. Sophia's heart sank. But I just laughed. "Fine," I said. I pulled out my phone. "I don't carry that much cash, though. I usually use other assets as collateral. I wonder if the auction house will accept it." "Oh, and what would that be?" Marcus asked, intrigued. I ignored him and dialed a number. The call was answered almost immediately. "Yes? Who is this?" a powerful, authoritative voice asked. "Patriot, it's me," I said simply. There was a 3-second pause on the other end. Then, the voice became incredibly respectful, almost trembling with excitement. "Pathfinder? Sir, is that you? You finally made contact." "I need money," I said, cutting to the chase. "Immediately. Wire $1 billion to the Seacrest International Auction House's account. And make sure it's under my personal name." "Yes, sir. Right away." "Is 1 billion enough?" "I can send more." "It's enough." I hung up. The whole call took less than 30 seconds. I put my phone away and looked at the stunned faces in the room. "You can verify the funds now," I said with a smile. A strange silence fell over the room. Everyone looked at me like I was a moron. "A phone call? You can just order $1 billion with a phone call? Who do you think you are?" Caleb actually burst out laughing. "Ha ha ha. That's hilarious. Are you acting in a movie? Patriot? Pathfinder? You think you're the main character in some fantasy novel? You're completely insane." Marcus just shook his head with a look of pity and contempt. "It seems Mr. Vance is unable to pay," he said to the auctioneer. "According to the rules, shouldn't he be escorted out?" The auctioneer looked pained. Sophia was so pale, she looked translucent. She thought the stress had finally made me snap. Just then, the auction house manager's phone began ringing off the hook. He ran backstage to answer it. A few seconds later, he sprinted back out, tripping over his own feet. He grabbed the microphone from the auctioneer, his voice shrill with excitement. It's here." "What's here?" Marcus asked, annoyed. $1 billion. A full billion. Just now. From a top-tier encrypted account at a Swiss royal bank. It was just transferred to our account. The memo says, "It's a personal bidding deposit from Mr. Ethan Vance." The manager's words were a nuclear bomb. The world went silent. Caleb's laughter died in his throat, his face frozen in a comical grimace. The look of contempt on Marcus's face dissolved into one of pure, unadulterated shock and horror. Swiss Royal Bank. Top-tier encrypted account. $1 billion. As a deposit. Everyone in that room knew what that meant. It meant a level of power and wealth so vast, they couldn't even comprehend it. This Ethan Vance. Who was he? All eyes were on me again. Not with curiosity, but with fear. A deep, primal fear. I just sat there, a faint smile on my face, as if I'd done nothing more than order a pizza. I took a sip of tea and looked at Marcus Sterling's ghostly white face. Mr. Sterling, I said, may I continue with my bid now? Marcus's lips trembled, but he couldn't speak. Behind him, Caleb's legs gave out, and he crumpled to the floor. He finally realized who he had provoked. He wasn't a man. He was an ant trying to challenge a dragon. 300 million. Any other bids? I asked, my quiet voice carrying an absolute authority. Not a soul dared to breathe. Sold. For $300 million, the auctioneer cried, slamming down the gavel. It was done. I stood up and offered my hand to Sophia. She was still in shock, staring at me as if seeing me for the first time. I smiled and took her cold hand in mine. Let's go home, my dear C. We walked past the Sterlings. I paused. Marcus looked like he'd aged 20 years. Caleb was still a heap on the floor, his eyes vacant. Oh, who are you? Marcus managed to ask. You don't have the clearance to know who I am, I said, looking down at him. All you need to know is that as of today, there is no more Sterling family in Seacrest City. Then I walked away with Sophia, leaving them in the wake of their own destruction. I knew that after tonight, the Sterling Empire would be torn apart by the combined forces of Arthur Finch and the mysterious Patriot. Back at the mansion, Sophia finally snapped out of her trance. She pulled her hand away and crossed her arms, looking at me like an angry cat. Ethan, you're going to explain everything right now. Who is Patriot? What is Pathfinder? And that $1 billion. Who are you? I had to laugh. I pulled her down onto the sofa next to me and took out the Asclepius ledger. You want answers? They're all in here. Sophia took the ancient book. When she saw the title, she gasped as if she'd been struck by lightning. The Asclepius ledger. How? How do you have this? You know it. Of course I know it, she said, her voice trembling. It's been passed down in my family for generations. My grandfather was the last practitioner. Before he died, he said my father didn't inherit the bloodline and that our family's legacy was over. He told me to hide the book and wait for the next chosen one. But I locked it in the basement. How did you? Her words solved the final piece of the puzzle. I wasn't some long-lost heir. I was the chosen one. And Sophia was my destined guardian. It was fate. So, the terminal cancer, that was your bloodline awakening. Sophia connected the dots, her expression a complex mix of emotions. And I, by some twisted coincidence, became the catalyst? You could say that, I nodded. Sophia was silent. She looked at me, then at the book, and then she burst into tears. She threw herself into my arms, pounding on my chest with her small fists. You idiot. Do you have any idea what I've been through this past month? I thought you were really dying. I was so scared I'd wake up one morning and you'd be cold, she sobbed. I got all my affairs in order at the company. I even wrote a will. I was going to follow you. She cried her heart out, releasing a month's worth of fear, love, and pain. My own heart ached with a strange mix of sorrow and warmth. I just held her tight. I'm sorry, was all I could say. Sorry isn't good enough. She looked up at me, her face tear-streaked and beautiful. You have to take responsibility for the rest of my life. Okay, I said, and then I kissed her. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It was a storm. The next day, a seismic shockwave hit Seacrest City's business world. Every publicly traded company under the Sterling Enterprises umbrella was hit with a devastating, coordinated attack the moment the market opened. Stocks plummeted. At the same time, the Finch Corporation announced it was terminating all partnerships with the Sterlings and launching a hostile takeover. It was a feeding frenzy. Within a single day, the Sterling Empire had crumbled. Marcus Sterling suffered a massive stroke and ended up in a vegetative state. Caleb was arrested on a slew of charges. The city's elite only knew that the sky had fallen. And me? I was lounging by the pool at Sophia's mansion, letting the beautiful CEO feed me grapes. Open up, she said, popping one in my mouth. Sweet. You're sweeter, I said, pulling her into my lap. What are you going to do about Patriot and his organization? She asked, getting comfortable. What about them? They think you're their pathfinder. You can't just ignore them forever. I smiled. I called him, told him I have no interest in inheriting whatever empire they have. I just want to be a humble doctor, and maybe a trophy husband. Who wants you as a trophy husband? She said, playfully swatting my chest. Oh, then I guess I'm not qualified to be the chief technical consultant for Innovatech's new project, Aegis Wellness Retreat. I said with a grin. The South District property was her new passion project, a world-class health and wellness center. With the knowledge from the Asclepius ledger, I was the key to its success. Sophia's eyes sparkled. You wish. If you want the job, you have to earn it. Ow! She leaned in and whispered in my ear. For starters, you can cure my lovesickness. 3 months later, the Aegis Wellness Retreat held its grand opening. The event was packed with the biggest names, not just from Seacrest City, but from across the country. They were all there for one reason. The rumor that the center's chief consultant was the miracle doctor, Ethan Vance. To them, I was a living legend. I stood on the stage, holding hands with a radiant Sophia. She was breathtaking in a red dress, her smile lighting up the entire venue. I saw Arthur Finch, beaming in the crowd. I saw Dr. Crane, looking at me with awe. I saw titans of industry I only recognized from magazine covers. And they were all looking at me with respect. From a dying kidnapper to a revered master physician. Life was a strange, beautiful, chaotic ride. After the ceremony, I pulled Sophia away from the crowd. Where are we going? She asked. I drove us, not to a 5-star restaurant, but to a small, hole-in-the-wall taco truck on the other side of town. It was the same one I dragged her to a lifetime ago. The owner recognized me. Hey man, long time no see. Is this pretty lady still your girlfriend? The usual, Manny, I said with a smile. We sat with our beers and tacos. Sophia, surrounded by the noise and the cheap plastic tables, looked perfectly content. Still the best tacos in the city, she said with a happy sigh. I just watched her and smiled. Ethan, she said suddenly, her expression serious. What if the diagnosis had been real? I took a long drink of my beer and met her gaze. If it had been real, I said slowly, I still wouldn't have regretted it. Because in my final month of madness, I found the only thing that ever mattered. The greatest luck in life isn't wealth or health. It's finding that one person who, when you decide to give the whole damn world the middle finger, is willing to do it with you. Sophia's eyes welled up. She didn't say anything. She just chugged her beer, her cheeks flushing. Then she gave a little burp and grinned at me. Ethan, she said, her voice giddy, I think I might be a little drunk. Then I'll carry you home. Okay. As the sun set, I walked down the street with the love of my life on my back. My story, I knew, was just beginning. And my life, once a glass of lukewarm water, had finally become a bottle of fiery, intoxicating whiskey. Here's to a crazy life, and to the even crazier love you find along the way. End.